That's what they're mad about. 41 nationally televised games, and they are furious over it. I can't.
The WNBA isn't just dealing with a little drama. It's in the middle of an all-out fan base war. On one side, you've got Aya Wilson and her crew, rumored to be throwing around the idea of boycotting Caitlin Clark's games. On the other, just the millions of new fans Caitlin has brought to women's basketball with her talent and charisma, all wondering why anyone would go out of their way to tear down the very player keeping the league in the spotlight.
But you want to boycott the one player, looking right at you, Angel Reese and A'ja Wilson, one player that has caused the revenue to go way up in the monetary values. That's what you want to do. You think you're helping these women?
Let's be real. The WNBA has never been this hot. Indiana Fever games are selling out like Beyoncé concerts. ESPN keeps adding more WNBA coverage, and social media is flooded with highlights, clips, and non-stop Caitlin Clark debates. But instead of celebrating and capitalizing on this momentum, a few bitter veterans and their fan base are acting like it's the end of the world. Turns out, the real enemy isn't mediocrity or irrelevance. It's success, especially when it comes with Caitlin's name on it.
Original fans, activist fans, that's what they are, all right? Just keeping it real. They don't like the fact that you want to watch these games. They don't like the fact that you are 3 or 4 times the amount of them.
Have you seen the news lately? There's basically a full-blown fan war over Caitlin Clark's games airing nationally 41 times this season, more than anyone else in the league. And some people are so mad about it, you'd think she personally stole their lunch money. Now, the internet is flooded with over-the-top calls for protests, like we're living in some exaggerated teen dystopian novel. All because one rookie had the audacity to draw attention.
Clark and the Fever will have more nationally televised game than any NBA player this year. Sorry, LeBron. Sorry, Luka. Sorry, every other player in the league. Let's be honest. I've seen the NBA ratings. She's beaten most.
Believe it or not, there are WNBA fans, grown adults, mind you, actively plotting to boycott Fever games just to bring down the ratings. Imagine being so bitter about someone else's spotlight that your master plan is to sabotage your own league's numbers. And no, this isn't just some rogue Reddit thread. Some of these boycott cheerleaders are actually connected to WNBA media circles, openly pushing fans to skip games or stream them illegally. Like that's somehow going to teach ESPN a lesson.
They're all mad right now, furious, and my goodness, guys, they're talking boycott. Oh, what? Oh, there's strength in numbers. There's tens of you.
Here's the reality. Caitlin Clark isn't just outshining WNBA stars. She's on track to outshine some of the biggest names in the NBA too. She has more national TV games this season than LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. That's not a fluke. That's a shift in the entire sports power dynamic. This isn't just about airtime. It's about who's truly commanding the spotlight in basketball culture. And spoiler alert, it's not Aya Wilson.
Yes, I understand. This is a very, very small minority. It is a very small minority of people, but it is a loud, vocal minority. And this is not the general public. This is not the general population.
Let's talk about Aya Wilson for a second, because wow, if jealousy were a stat, she'd be leading the league. While Caitlin Clark is out here shattering viewership records and selling out arenas, Aya has been posting more subtweets than stat lines. Instead of embracing the wave of new attention, she's too busy throwing shade like it's part of her defensive drills. Honestly, it's almost impressive how someone so accomplished can sound this bitter. You'd think the WNBA handed Caitlin her own TV network and a parade float with the way Ia's acting. And the wildest part? She's not losing anything. She's just not used to sharing. She's had the spotlight all to herself for years, unchallenged and unbothered. Now, someone younger, flashier, and, let's be real, more marketable steps in, and suddenly it's Caitlin's getting too much attention and the league is playing favorites. News flash, attention isn't charity. It's earned. And while Clark is putting on a nightly masterclass, Wilson is giving off major bitter big sister in the group chat energy.
Wilson is her name. Quote, "It doesn't matter what we all do as black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it
You'd think a 3-time MVP would be a little more secure, but watching Aya Wilson react to Caitlin Clark's rise feels like watching a Netflix star realize their show got canceled mid-season because something better came along. It's not Caitlin's fault fans are tuning in for her instead of salty Twitter threads. The cameras follow the story, and right now, Aya has positioned herself as the antagonist in a drama she signed up for. The real issue? A small group of legacy fans. People who stuck with the league through empty bleachers and halftime t-shirt tosses are struggling with the WNBA going mainstream. They treated it like an exclusive club, and now that Clark has blown the doors wide open, they're clutching their pearls like someone just scuffed their vintage merch.
Supposed to talk about it out loud, maybe. That's a massive part. Straight white girl's a big part of it too. I mean, it's out loud. It's out loud. It just came out of my mouth like that. Just easy peasy. So they're mad, and they are calling for boycott.
Let's be real. This so-called boycott isn't about fairness or justice. It's about ego. It's a handful of longtime fans and players who would rather see the league shrink than accept Caitlin Clark as the face of its future. Some media voices have already called them out for how ridiculous this is, pointing out the obvious. Most real fans are too busy enjoying the games to waste time complaining about airtime.
Slows are now planning to, quote, boycott Indiana Fever games to affect the viewership. They really think they matter in the big scheme of things.
What we're seeing is classic gatekeeping. The OG fans who think they own the league's identity are panicking now that fresh blood is changing the game. This happens in every fandom. Hip-hop heads complaining about TikTok rappers, comic book purists losing it over blockbuster adaptations. It's the same insecure energy, just a different stage.
Just mad. And what they have now trying to do is they are trying to boycott Indiana Fever games. I'm not joking when I say this. They are literally saying, boycott Indiana. We need to all boycott the Indiana Fever games so they don't get more national TV games. We don't get more national TV games next year.
Meanwhile, the boycott logic makes zero sense. If you actually care about the players and the league's success, deliberately tanking viewership is just about the dumbest move imaginable. Caitlin Clark isn't the only one benefiting here. Her success is elevating the entire WNBA, bringing in more money and opportunities for everyone. This petty protest could backfire so badly that it ends up hurting the very players these boycotters claim to support.
I don't believe it. And again, this is a minority of people, but the problem is the idiotic minority somehow a lot of them somehow have ins with WNBA players, WNBA teams and stuff. I cannot believe it.
Let's talk numbers. Before Caitlin Clark showed up, WNBA games were lucky to hit 200,000 viewers. Now, they're regularly pulling over 1 million. That's not just growth, it's a ratings explosion. And this isn't some meaningless stat. More viewers mean bigger ad deals, which means higher revenue and ultimately better paychecks for everyone. But sure, let's boycott that.
Like, I just can't believe it. But they're reasoning for boycotting the Fever games. They're literally saying, we should illegally stream the games when the Fever play our team. And I'm like, one, you are not a big enough percentage of the population for it to have any effect.
Here's how the money trail actually works. Player salaries are directly tied to media rights deals. These are the massive contracts networks like ABC, ESPN, and CBS sign to broadcast games. And what drives those contracts? Viewership. The more people watching, the more networks are willing to pay. Simple business 101. Yet somehow, this basic concept seems to fly right over the boycott crowd's heads.
What it does is harm the players. No matter who you are, what team you are a fan of, if you want the players to make more money.
And guess what? The WNBA is in the middle of renegotiating its collective bargaining agreement. That means this is the worst possible time to be pouting in the corner and sabotaging ratings. Networks are watching Caitlin Clark bring in massive audiences and adjusting their checkbooks accordingly. If the league plays this right, those skyrocketing viewership numbers could raise the financial ceiling for every player. But if this boycott nonsense gains traction, that ceiling might come crashing down.
Actively trying to ungrow the game. And it's madness. It's absolutely madness. Like, they're threatening to boycott the Fever Games. All 257 of them threatening to boycott Fever Games like it makes any difference. Like, these people are not fans of basketball. These people are actually not fans of the WNBA.
Let's break this down. Caitlin Clark shows up, and suddenly WNBA viewership jumps 5 to 10 times higher than usual. That's not a mild bump, it's a seismic shift. With that kind of heat, networks aren't just open to renegotiating. They're practically throwing their wallets at the league. This is the exact kind of attention the WNBA has been chasing for decades. And now that it's finally here, some people want to boycott? Make it make sense.
Just don't like Caitlin Clark. Like, this is genuinely, it's nothing to do with basketball. And it's nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, the person. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because I don't think there is a harder person to dislike